My name is Sherry Guess, and this is the Heavily Meddled Podcast. On this podcast, I interview patients, medical professionals, and industry insiders, having important discussions regarding the all too commonly experienced but lesser identified symptoms of hypersensitivity to metals contained in implanted medical and dental hardware, diet, and environments. These metals often cause a variety of dysfunctional immune responses, chronic pain, and other syndromes that fly under the radar of most patients and physicians. During these interviews, the patients and I discuss ideas for managing symptoms, share personal lifestyle modifications, and talk about how to advocate with and educate providers pre- and post-surgery, along with options found for implant removal and the how-to of adverse event reporting. This podcast does not give medical advice. From time to time, I may interview medical professionals that render personal opinions you can use to follow up with your individual provider. Let's roll. Hello, metalheads, and welcome to the jungle. Welcome back to this edition of the Heavily Meddled Podcast. Today, we have our special guest, Bethany, joining us from Missouri. Welcome, Bethany. Thanks for coming on. She's going to share with us all about her nickel allergy as it relates to diet. And we have not had a guest on talking about diet in relation to nickel allergies as the core topic yet. So Bethany has an awesome story. I was so lucky I spotted her online, and we're going to hear about it. So thank you, Bethany.
You're welcome. I'm happy to share.
So tell us about you and your life and your family, your kids, if you have them, what you love. Who's Bethany?
So I grew up in the country in Missouri and had a great childhood, very straightforward health in my childhood. I did have braces when I was younger. No major issues with braces, which I find really interesting now. And there was a point where I did start finding like jewelry problems, but as I was just going through life, I just decided I loved art. I loved guitar. I play guitar. And those are both things now too that I've discovered also have nickel in the guitar strings sometimes, and there's nickel in paintbrushes sometimes. So it's just interesting looking back at my hobbies, things I've loved. In college, I studied art and design and married my college sweetheart, Adam, and we have 2 kids, 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. Yeah. So
that'll keep you busy.
Yes. I homeschool my kids, and we do a lot of hiking, and we love just anything outside. We garden. We love our local parks. So yeah, that's.
Do you have animals?
In a nutshell. We have cats.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'm all over that. So tell me, I don't know if you saw when I sent you the intro to the podcast, if you come on here, this is a new thing. You got to tell us your favorite heavy metal song and your favorite heavy metal band. That's a thing.
Okay.
Put me on the spot.
So is it Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne?
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Nice.
And my son's favorite right now is POD. For before his basketball games, we play Booms by POD.
Nice. So, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Woo.
Yeah.
You have a favorite 80s band?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't know.
Do you have a young,
favorite?
So... Do I have a favorite? Oh my gosh, I got lots of favorites, but nobody's turned the tables on me yet. So congratulations. I would have to say they're friends of mine and they were pivotal in my early career days. So I have a partiality for Skid Row. Bon Jovi. I once upon a time dated the drummer from Kiss. So
I
lived in the golden age of rock and roll. So it was super fun.
Awesome. That's
okay.
Cool.
So go way back. You hinted that you had some jewelry issues. You had some talk about your earliest exposures and just bring us forward.
I just remember in high school having some jewelry that was bothering me, and someone's like, "Oh, well, you're probably sensitive to nickel. Just look into hypoallergenic jewelry and make sure you're not wearing cheap jewelry." That was kind of my first exposure to, oh, okay, I'm sensitive to nickel.
So was it
Um,
necklaces or just earrings? Was it snaps on your jeans? Was it bracelet?
Earrings, jean buttons, and
Okay.
probably bracelets. But it was pretty much like where my contact of the point was. That was the only issue I really had. My ears were itchy and red, and that was the main issue I had was
And
the
you didn't
contact
really
dermatitis.
and you didn't really notice symptoms elsewhere on your body. It
Mm-mm.
was just pretty much at that time at the point of
Mm-mm.
contact. Okay.
Yeah. The next suspected exposure, in hindsight, we were on a service project working with concrete, and I had sunscreen on my lips because it was super sunny, and the concrete got on my lips, and I had just tons of fever blisters and horrible skin reaction all over my mouth. And I was like, this is really weird. And someone said, well, it's probably like a sunburn. But now I know a lot of concrete actually has nickel in it. So now I'm thinking, well, that
Okay.
probably would have.
You're telling me something brand new. I have never heard this. Where did you come up with concrete has nickel?
For the last year, I've been looking and thinking back on past exposures. And I'm like, well, I wonder if concrete has nickel in it. I looked it up. And just, yeah, there's often metals, and nickel's one of the metals often used in concrete.
That's interesting you say that. So this is not concrete. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole for a minute. This is not concrete. But when I was 14, I flew off a motorcycle and I was wearing a dress and no shoes and no helmet. And I got a whole bunch of asphalt in my legs. And it was stuff that they could not get out. I'll spare you the details, but when they were cleaning me up in the ER, there was a whole bunch of stuff below the bone that they couldn't get out. So the whole bottom part of my leg, actually, it's really interesting. I think I'm going to post a picture in the show notes for anybody that's listening. I'm going to intrude on your episode here, but about 3 weeks ago, I broke out in some really strange looking welts just over that area above where the asphalt is. I'm going to date myself here, but almost 40 years that asphalt has been in my legs. And you wonder, now that you say that, if nickel's in concrete, I'm going to have to go on a hunt now and figure out if nickel's in asphalt, because that could very much explain. Everybody's like, oh, I don't know what that is. It doesn't itch, it doesn't hurt, but it's just there. And anyway, thank you for that.
It's wild. It's wild.
So fever blisters on your lips from working with concrete. Okay. And what came next?
Next, in college, I started just having a lot of issues with IBS. And it was severe enough that eventually my doctor had me do a colonoscopy. They investigated and they were like, you're healthy, you're young, it looks good. There's nothing really to be alarmed about, which was a relief. I just thought, well, this is just who I am as I aged. At the time, I was eating a lot of oatmeal. I was a poor college student. Eating nuts for snacks was common. Just whatever we could eat on the go. I'm trying
everything
to think
that's
what
healthy.
Else. Oh, yeah. Spinach, for sure. Chocolate.
Of course.
Yeah. So I had a lot of nickel in my diet at that point. And no other real issues, though.
No reaction to braces at all?
I just stopped wearing jewelry for the most part, unless it was shells or I had some wooden necklaces. It was irritating enough that I just really didn't wear jewelry a whole lot.
No reaction to braces inside, outside, systemically?
No.
How is that even possible?
That's what my dentist said. I would have the usual irritations on my cheeks and stuff, but nothing like red or itchy or...
I remember that when my son got his braces, he's turned out to have a nickel allergy too. And it's funny because he's adopted, but he had a lifetime of projectile vomiting and throwing up. We thought he was allergic to soy. It turns out, through a very long story, which someday we'll share, that he's allergic to nickel, but he didn't really have any major symptoms other than he had canker sores all the time in his mouth.
I had canker sores.
So maybe you did have a reaction.
Maybe, yeah. I think I kind of just thought, oh, well, it's the rubbing irritation, not like a metal irritation. Yeah.
And now possibly. That was my son's only symptom, was canker sores during his braces. So there you go.
I don't get canker sores anymore either.
Yay. Okay. So tell me how you became aware of your allergy from there. I
had a major flare up, and it was during COVID. I couldn't get in for 4 or 5 days because they were closed because so much of their staff had COVID. And I was like, well, I can't wait that long. And so I just started making phone calls for,
So when you say you had a flare up, talk about that. What did that look like?
I have a picture. This is what I show my doctors. This is my binder that I take in.
Wow.
So they know. And so 11 a.m. was here. This was after I showered. I had swollen so much just from a shower. And I was making calls, and finally I just like, okay, I need to do something. And I called.
So hang on. I'm going to stop.
Okay.
I'm going to stop you for a minute. So you said you swelled in the shower. Is that because of the water coming through your pipes?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that, because there's people that explain how that works to people who are just brand new to this, wondering if they have a problem.
With old pipes, a lot of times nickel is used in those old pipes. And when you have your water just sitting in those pipes, especially, there's a lot of nickel in it. One thing I will do is I'll run the water and let it run for a minute or two. So all that water that's just been sitting in the pipes, that's gone through. I've also put a filter on my shower head because we do have old pipes.
That was a massive difference between before you were in the shower and after. I mean, I'm not sure you were recognizable, really.
Yeah, my mom came over and she was like, are you sure you don't want to go to the emergency room? I didn't want to come down with being sick on top of a flare up. I really didn't want to expose myself to other things.
Had you had a similar type flare before?
That was the worst.
Do you know what brought it on?
That week I had chickpea curry. Chickpeas are really high in nickel. I had spinach smoothies. I probably had some chocolate because I love chocolate. Beans, Mexican food. And just as the week went, I wasn't putting anything on my face at that point. I didn't even want to put cold washcloths on my face. I was just putting ice packs on my face.
Did it hurt, or did you have systemic pain? Did you have a runny nose? Like, did you have symptoms that went along with?
I had joint pain. I did not know how much pain I was in until it started going away, which took months. I just had so much joint pain. My hair was falling out. My hands and feet were swollen. It was just the pain on my skin. If you could imagine like a sunburn with poison ivy, that might be the most comparable thing I could think of. It's just like hot and itchy. And it was just one of those things where, I have 2 busy kids and they were just really gracious for me.
Did you have COVID and this came after COVID, or it was just during COVID?
That's an interesting question. My doctor asked me the same thing because I have a new primary care doctor, but I had COVID in December. So it had been a while, but it was recent enough that my doctor believes that there was a little bit of like your immune system takes a hit and then it gets amped up from recovery and then you're overreacting with your allergies is the theory he gave me.
And I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. Did you have any allergies growing up as a kid? We didn't talk about your allergy history. Did you have any?
No, not really. I would have some seasonal allergies, but nothing really severe
And no concrete food allergy where you like thought, aside from metal, I can't do such and such. Nothing like that.
No, nothing like that.
So did you go into the hospital during the flare?
I actually got a teledoc appointment through my insurance. So it was a virtual visit.
Okay.
And so you upload all your information, your medical history, your pictures. And actually, the first appointment I had, the guy hung up on me and he was like, sorry, because he had my husband's information. So that was kind of funny because I would have had the different doctor that I don't think would have been as helpful. But the next doctor, in a matter of 15 minutes, he was like, I'm certain this is a nickel allergy. I think it's probably a systemic nickel allergy. You should look into low nickel diet.
Wait, what? You had a doctor that actually came up with that? Like, where did he get the nickel from?
From looking at my pictures. He said, this is like textbook nickel allergy reaction.
Man, you need to go find that doctor. He needs to
I
come on the
know.
podcast and tell us, like,
and through Teledoc, they don't even give you the name of the doctor, which is really kind of disappointing for me because I wish I could just send him an email and say thank you.
Thank you. You like changed my life. So when he said that, how did that feel inside? Did it ring true for you? Or what did you think when he...
Well, I was skeptical because I told him, I was like, the thing is, I react the most to water. And he was like, well, are your pipes old? And I was like, well, yeah. And he said, well, your pipes have nickel in them. And I was like, okay, well.
That's a doctor ahead of his time. Mm-hmm. So you came home and did what? He told you, I think you have a nickel allergy. You came home and what was the next step?
So he put me on steroids and then I started looking into the low nickel diet. I found the Italian.
How did you do that? You just Googled?
Pretty much. I Googled and through that found the Italian nickel detox diet. And that's what I stuck to for the first probably 4 months, was just really rigid, trying to do that and also identify my exposures in my home. For example, we had a tea kettle. I loved having tea at night. It was stainless steel. So we got rid of that and just finding the stainless steel mugs, finding the glasses that are metal. I'm trying to think now. You replace so many things and then you don't have to think about it again in a way.
Talk about what all that looks like. Because like I said, you're coming in at a point in the podcast where we have literally almost not discussed anything diet or environmental with the nickel allergy. So like somebody comes to you with a nickel allergy, tell us what that looks like. Tell us what the Italian nickel diet looked like. Tell us the specifics of what you found in the house, things we might not think of.
One thing I had missed was I had a pair of sandals that had a buckle on them. I'd never had a rash underneath the buckle. My rashes were up my legs and on my ankles. And once I got rid of those sandals, I had other spots that I was symptomatic, but I started seeing less spots on my legs. Other things like Instant Pots insert was stainless steel, a lot of water bottles. I had a Yeti water bottle. I replaced that. There's just so many things. The one thing that I think helped me the most was probably getting nickel alert. It's not 100% accurate, but it at least helped me just have an awareness of the metal that was around me and just thinking,
for the listeners, what is that?
Nickel alert is a product. I got it on Amazon and it's just a little bottle. You put it on a Q-tip and you rub it on the metal. And then if your Q-tip turns red, there's nickel in it. And that's the way to just be more aware of what metals are in your surroundings.
So let's go pick this apart for a minute. Go back to the Italian nickel detox diet. What are some of the parameters of that diet? Pretend you're talking to a kindergartner here. I know some of this, but a lot of the listeners may not know any of this. And there's people with surgical hardware who haven't given any consideration to diet and vice versa. So what does that diet look like? And then how does the diet now? And then we'll go back and pick up some of the environmental stuff.
So for me, what I did was I printed it off. And then I went through and I highlighted all my favorite things on that list. For me, that looks like Swiss chard, iceberg lettuce, squash, quinoa, beef, lamb. I also have a poultry intolerance, so I don't do turkey and I don't do chicken, but that's included on the Italian nickel detox. Cod. Then for like spices, you can use like paprika, cardamom, vanilla.
These are the things you can use, or
these are what use? You can use these things.
Okay.
You can use honey, duck fat, olive oil. There's a lot of apples, blueberries, dairy, yogurt, cheese.
What are the no-nos?
The no-nos would be like brown rice, spinach, nuts, all seeds. I love chia seeds. Those are a big no-no. Avocados, those are a no-no.
I know a big no-no for my son was like, he called me after a huge flare and it was like, is there nickel in hummus? I'm like, oh, honey.
Oh, I was one of my favorites. Yep. Sesame oil, soy, all of those really good Asian flavors. I miss those because there's a lot of no-nos in those Asian flavors. And what else? Let's see. A lot of canned items are popular, but that is a big no-no. Canned items. I don't do any canned drinks, canned foods. Trying to think what else. Blackberries are a big no-no. Raspberries are a big no-no.
Raspberries are like my favorite fruit known to man. And we go up to my cousins in northern Idaho, and literally we would spend all morning and pick gallons of raspberries. And I would just come home and just...
Yeah.
I still have to cheat a little bit. So you were on it for 4 months. Let me go back and ask you, did you ever get tested? Did you ever get a blood test or a patch test for metal? You may or may not know that once you have a nickel allergy, oftentimes you're allergic to other metals. Have you tested for that? And do you know if you have?
I have not officially tested yet. Okay. My doctors were just like, as long as you're feeling like you're making a lot of progress with just figuring out your nickel stuff, they felt like there was other priorities as far as testing goes. So they had me do the food intolerance testing, and they had me do a gut test. And so it was like a GI 360 test. And those were things that they felt took precedence. And that may be something that I do this year is patch allergy testing.
The patch testing, and I don't know if you're aware of this, isn't super accurate.
I've heard that. And I've also heard a lot of times it can also flare you up and make you worse because you're exposed to all those things that your body may not like.
The blood test is, I think, the test of choice, although, and we're still going to come back to the environmental stuff. Do you have any metal in your body that you know of? Do you have cavities? Do you have a night guard? Do you have any metal anywhere?
Not that I know of. No, I don't have any.
Have you had any surgery?
So, I've had 2 C-sections.
And you're sure there's no clips or staples in there?
They said they use dissolving staples. Yeah.
Dissolving sutures. Okay, well, good. Because, there's so many people that don't realize that they have metal inside. And I think in the metal allergic community that has not had surgery yet, I don't think it may be high enough on the radar for people as far as their medical directives and their advanced healthcare directives and their profiles. Doctors, I think people need to be aware that if you ever have a surgery, this could be a really big deal. Are you aware that there's nickel in titanium?
I have heard that. Yes.
So titanium is never commercially pure. It's always alloyed with other metals, and it's either usually nickel or vanadium. Actually, I've had several doctors that specialize in metal allergies say there's always nickel and titanium. And, the interesting thing I'll just share with you and share with the listeners that I have 6 pins in my pelvis, and the pelvic hardware that I have, I knew that I had jewelry reactions going into surgery. I didn't have a full-blown metal allergy diagnosis at this point because doctors said it wasn't a thing. But my pelvic hardware was less than 1/10,000th of 1% nickel. And I reacted, and it sent me over the edge. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if it's 1%. It doesn't matter if it's half a percent. If you're sensitive to that metal, you're going to react. So crazy. Okay. So go back and tell me about what you did. You said you put a filter on your shower. What kind of filter?
I just found a shower filter on Amazon. I think it's helped. I still do the running water though. I am extra cautious. And the whole nickel bucket analogy, where I don't know if you or your listeners have heard it before, but you have your nickel bucket. Everyone has a different size of nickel bucket. As you fill it, you get to a point where it starts overflowing. That's when you start having reactions. I feel like there's a chance that my nickel bucket may change at some point, and I can do things that can poke holes so it'll drain faster. But I do want to be cautious that all the things that I'm doing, I would rather run my water for a couple minutes versus risk having a nickel allergy from like a little exposure. If I can do little things like that, I want to do the little things so I can have a little less risk for exposure and reactions.
So you've got a shower filter. What about cookware? What about water filters? What did you go from and what did you go to? And how did you figure that all out?
So we got a water filter in our kitchen. We use a Berkey water filter, and we actually used that before I knew anything about nickel. It's a metal filter, but from what
I
I
have
know
a Berkey
of,
filter.
from what I know, it doesn't have any nickel in it. Okay, well maybe I'll get a plastic one.
Berkey does have a nickel in it.
Oh, okay. So we've done that. We have cast iron in our kitchen. We've replaced as many of the metal tools and supplies. For our kitchen, we had a lot of stainless steel cups. When we had our daughter, we started using less plastic and more metal, thinking, okay, this will be a better, safer alternative. So we had all this metal. We had metal water bottles, metal bowls. And so we've replaced all that. Oh, yeah. Well, it's just like thinking back, it makes me tired.
Oh, I know. There's a little bit of PTSD. I know because I've done this. The liner for the Instant Pot that's metal, they make a ceramic liner. So what kind of cookware did you go to? I got a ceramic liner for the Instant Pot. It's been great. And I changed my cookware. You said cast iron.
Yeah, we use cast iron now. And it seems to be working great for us. But we do use some silicone. I know a lot of cast iron, they use metal a lot of times for like the turners. We've used wood, like spoons and spatulas, silicone.
Did you have any eczema aside from just like the point of contact when you figured out the diet thing? Did you have any other symptoms from the stuff in your home that you were aware of, or you just knew that it was contributing to the bucket, so you decided to take it out?
I guess I'm an all or nothing kind of person. So I was like, well, if it's going to have a bad impact on me or could potentially be making this worse, I just want to get rid of it. So what I did was I kind of just made a list of all the things that I use and prioritized, okay, these are the things I use daily and I want to replace them. Like water was like first and foremost for us. And then like cookware. Slowly as we got through our list, there's things like finding jeans with brass buttons, because I feel like that's something that I have kind of been doing the last year is emailing companies and just finding out what are in your buttons. Those are things that just as the symptoms started to diminish, I could feel better and just felt like, okay, this is working and I want to keep doing it.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Attention metalheads. Are you struggling with skin rashes, joint and systemic pain, or fatigue that just won't go away? Type 4 metal allergy is often overlooked as a culprit in many of today's chronic illnesses. Get to the root of the problem with ELISA testing. ELISA is a scientifically proven and clinically validated test that measures immune reactivity to metal allergens like nickel, cobalt, and titanium. With fast and reliable results, you can get the answers you need to find relief and live a healthier life. Don't let metal allergies control your life any longer. Visit melisa.org to learn more and schedule your test. Trust us, you'll be glad you did. ELISA, a valuable diagnostic tool in medicine. So, how soon did you start to notice a difference? Tell us about the things you noticed, like from the skin to the inside to the pain.
I started feeling better. I felt like a lot in February. March is when I had food intolerance testing done, which I know some people think is questionable as to how helpful it is. For me, I felt like it was really helpful because I had so much inflammation going on. Finding out other things that were causing inflammation was really important because I found out turkey and chicken, that's something we eat really often in our family, and those were causing joint pain. So it was interesting to be able to see, okay, this is causing this kind of pain. And I've tried reintroducing some higher nickel things, and it does cause joint pain, but now it's nice. I'm not compounding and I'm isolating those symptoms, and I can see which one's causing how much and what issue.
I'm a bad example here, but I got to have chocolate. And this morning I had some cashews. I got to have them. But have you tried taking an antihistamine with foods when you indulge? Have you tried that? And has it helped?
I have tried that. I feel like it helps with the itchiness. It doesn't help with my GI stuff, though.
Okay. You notice a direct correlation. Now, you said you were having problems with turkey and chicken. Was that part of the nickel allergy or not related? Okay. I
think it's a whole separate issue for me. I'm hoping, because the way my doctor has explained it to me is because of having so many skin issues, I've been given steroids with good reason. There have been many times where my immune system was just out of control. So I needed the steroids, but now my immune system, they've done testing and I have an IgA deficiency and it's clinically non-detectable. So he's treating that and he's hoping that once I get my immune system and my gut reset completed, that maybe my intolerances won't be so severe as well. Related, but kind of related.
It's got to help when you take out something like nickel that you know you're reacting to. At least it gets all that out of the way so they can figure out what the next thing is. What kind of tools online were helpful for you? Were there websites or groups or pages, books that you got from the library? I mean, does anybody get library books anymore?
There is a low nickel diet Facebook group, which is where we met. The low nickel diet and lifestyle group. That's a good tool for me. Finding just ideas on things to replace. That was a good starting point because there was a lot of things that I just wasn't really aware of. The Italian nickel detox diet, that was online. After I had been doing the Italian nickel detox diet, I switched to the Nickel Navigator app at one point that I think is available for both Android and iPhone. And that was super helpful.
How do you use that? What are the applications of that app for people who don't know?
So you can go to the app, search whatever food item you're wanting to learn about or you're wanting to have. And it will tell you whether it's red, yellow, or green. So red would be avoid completely. Yellow would be possibly causing problems. Green would be low nickel. So that was helpful. And I could say, hey, Adam, tell my husband, here's this app. If you're at the store and you're trying to think or remember something, he could put it on his app and search it. And I forget all the time. What is the low nickel?
I don't use it very often because I kind of figure out what works and what hasn't. But isn't there a threshold where they say you can have this much nickel, but not this much? What's the threshold for most people?
I want to say under 75 is kind of your safe bet for keeping your whole nickel intake for the day. So that's what I did for 4 or 5 months. And then I increased it to 125. And that's where I've been at.
I'm looking at some of the notes from your post here. You were talking about some of your other symptoms, recurring strep throat, hormonal acne. That's all disappeared. You have brain fog, anxiety. We talked about the swelling and the rashes. You had insomnia.
I could not sleep. When your legs are itching like crazy, it's actually really hard to sleep. But I sleep like a rock now.
That's great. We saw a little bit of your pictures, but I think when we put them up and people can see, there's no denying the difference. Tell us what's in your notebook. I know you have the pictures. What else do you keep in there?
The Italian nickel detox is in there. That is just kind of giving the provider what I've been doing as far as dietary wise. Any sort of test results that I get from my doctor, I print and I put in there. And it's been helpful for me because I've kind of jumped from providers trying to find the right fit, the one that will listen. And I knew I had a good provider when I handed him the binder and he was like, oh, this is amazing. Every single patient needs to do this because this is how you get things done. And it's like all these questions that...
Here's a funny story. Hold that thought. I'm actually doing a first and I'm going to jump off camera because I'm going to show you something. So you want to be scared? This is the first time shown on the public podcast.
Oh, yes.
There is the mother load of the binder, y'all. This is the first one. I'm about to fill the second one. And in case you can't tell that it's bursting, let me just show you. Okay, so I've had like a million surgeries, a million lab tests, but y'all, there you go.
Yeah.
It is, I'm going to undo this. So we got this whole section here. We got this whole section. You know that my doctors love to see me coming. I got the other section. So this is the backward section. Okay, so I got all of that. Can you imagine? Your binder at least looks manageable. You don't want a binder like mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk the mother load of binders, but that is really important.
Well, and I think the other thing I wish I would have done sooner is take more pictures because I just hadn't thought of taking the pictures until last January. I was like, oh my gosh, this is getting really intense. And I just thought I need to document this better because by the time I get into the doctor, this could be disappearing. The pictures have helped a lot.
Was that January of this year?
No, that was January 2022.
Okay. So do you feel like out of all those prior symptoms, do you have any remaining? Or do you feel like they're all gone?
No, I feel like they're all gone.
The joint pain's gone, like everything's gone.
Yeah, everything's gone. I mean, I'll sometimes have a hard time sleeping at night on occasional because my kids are up or something normal. Yeah. But yeah, all of my symptoms are gone.
What about the GI symptoms? Are they gone too?
Yeah, I'm very regular.
That's awesome. When you have to go out and have bad food, what is it?
When I go out, I will get a baked potato, not eat the skin. I'll eat a steak. I think anything grilled is usually safer for me because a lot of times they'll have like oils and stuff and like sautés. Even steaming, I am leery of because a lot of times it'll be steamed in a stainless steel kitchen supply. I don't do steaming vegetables. Usually I will try and do grilled food or grilled vegetables. That's what I do.
When you cheat, do you ever have something that's an absolute no-no just because you got to have it? And what happens when you do?
So over the holiday season, I had the chocolate chip cookie. It had everything in it that I'm not supposed to have. I can't do the gluten. I'm also gluten intolerant and not nickel related. And then also the chocolate usually has soy in it. So in addition to the chocolate being bad, the soy is also high nickel. And I break out in rashes, not usually on my face, usually like my armpits and like my sides is where I usually break out.
I get them in my armpit too. Is that the weirdest place to get a rash?
I think it's because our body's sweating it out. I think that's where our lymph nodes are. I think everything is sweating out there.
That makes perfect sense. Huh. I had rashes show up and mine wasn't, so diet related. This is going to be a little TMI. Trying to figure out the appropriate way to share this. So I have hardware down low in my back and I have hardware in my neck. And when the pollen's high outside, I don't know if you react. Did you, when you were eating high nickel diet, were you worse when the pollen was high outside? Like thinking of like the whole histamine bucket theory?
I think I'm more sensitive.
So the interesting thing with me is I had these rashes and they say often, and I don't know if yours were bleeding, but kind of a bleeding rash. The crazy thing is, and I didn't even associate this for the longest time, I had a super itchy pimples between my shoulder blades and I have fairly clean skin. But honestly, I didn't even really, as much as I know about nickel and metal, I didn't even make the connection really until this week. That was coming from my neck and the stuff that's way down low. I won't even tell you where that breaks out, unmentionable places. It's really absolutely related. And an interesting thing, it's weird with the type of allergy that it shows up removed from where the metal is. You haven't had surgery, but I'm getting ready to have a plate or a little toggle clip removed. My pain is here from an anchor to the bicep tendon, but the actual metal's behind underneath and it radiates forward. I know somebody that had open heart surgery and they sewed his sternum together with stainless steel wire. And we were talking recently and his pain was all in the back. It wasn't anywhere near where the metal was. I think the systemic reactions must be like that. But you know, you've put together some interesting things for me on this podcast. Definitely always wondered why the rash under the arms. I was thinking about that this morning, but that makes perfect sense. So what did your doctor say? What do they say when you show them the binder? Are they like blowing it off or are they like really get it?
My current primary doctor, he gets it. He comes from a background though of having medical complications that are kind of hard to identify and pinpoint. And so for him, he was excited for me and he was like, I wish every patient did this. I think it helps connect the dots and it helps me know the right questions to be asking. That was really for me positive because it's like, okay, yeah, I'm making the right moves here and making progress. And for me as a patient, seeing that he cares and understands why I'm so motivated to figure out some strategies for poking holes in my nickel bucket. How can we get this to move through my system faster? Or is there anything I can be doing to support my immune system? Just kind of answering question marks that might be able to help me handle the nickel just a little bit better, manage it better.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, are you comfortable sharing your age? And if you're not, that's fine. But
I'm 35 years old.
Okay, so you're still pretty young. How do you think going forward, are you going to put medical directives in place, and what's that going to look like for you? Medical ID bracelets or, anything like that?
I have considered a nickel allergy ID bracelet because I feel like if something were to happen, I mean, just like you're talking about, doctors aren't connecting the allergy to the metals to the nickel. I feel like for me to be able to have some sort of information that in the case that there's an accident or a health emergency and my family is not able to be there right away, that kind of gives some directive to the healthcare providers.
Yeah, I think it's
there.
crazy important because you're going to hear stories, if you haven't heard them already on this podcast, about people with metal allergies and 3 clips that are this size and it's almost killed them. And
I can't imagine.
I think every metal allergic patient, I mean, there's a group of 5,000 in the Facebook group. How many of those people have really thought ahead about surgery? Like, how many of those people, even that know about nickel allergies, how many of the nickel allergic group know that there's nickel in titanium and would listen to the doctor if it says, oh, there's no nickel in the titanium, or the nickel that's in this hardware is less than 1%. It's not going to be a factor. We've got to change the medical narrative here.
Yeah, definitely.
With this kind of stuff. What about mental health? It doesn't sound like your flares were of super long duration for you to go down the total. Did it affect your mental health? Did you have depression? Like you said, you had some anxiety.
I don't think I dealt with depression, but I definitely have intrusive thoughts, just like protecting my children in public. I would get so stressed out trying to figure out every single worst case scenario at the park or worst case scenario, just going to the store and being in the public and just being skeptical of every person passing me and those kind of intrusive thoughts through the day. I still am aware of my surroundings, but it is just so much less, I don't know the word, less anxious.
It's fluid. It's just,
I feel like my capacity has changed too. Just like my mental health load is so much lower because I'm not dealing with irritable skin and irritable IBS. All those things don't bother me. So my mental load in general is less.
You have more bandwidth to deal with the ups and downs of life. I do want to ask how you've changed from who you were before this happened, and if you have new personal or professional goals, new insights. That
I don't feel like I've changed a whole lot, but then I think about the fact that I spent a whole year researching and studying a metal on the periodic table, and I'm like, I'm kind of a different person now. It's like I've been given a whole different puzzle piece to my world. I've been really interested in gardening, and one of the things that I've learned is there are hyperaccumulators. There are flowers that you can plant alongside your vegetables, and these hyperaccumulators absorb metals in the soil. So that's
please explain. Okay. Whoa, stop. Go back. Tell me how this works. Okay, so what are the superaccumulators? How does that work? Tell me what you've learned.
So sunflowers are a very prominently well-known hyperaccumulator. I believe dandelions are actually a really good hyperaccumulator. So if you have dandelions, that's actually nourishing your soil to not have as much heavy metals.
Okay, so then if dandelions hyperaccumulate metals, you've heard that they're very medicinal. Are dandelions safe to eat if you have a nickel allergy since they accumulate metals?
I personally want to eat it.
Yeah.
Just because of what I know about it now. I don't know if dandelions are in the nickel navigator, but
have you tried?
I would assume.
Well, let's look them up. We can do that on the podcast because I'm in charge. While we're doing that, there was a question I was going to ask you about hydroponics. So a lot of the podcast listeners may not know that foods that are typically high nickel that are grown in the soil.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the hydroponic versions seem to be okay. Have you messed with hydroponics at all? I'm looking this up while we're talking.
I have not gone down that rabbit hole yet. But I imagine it's something I will eventually. We live in a smaller house, so we don't have a whole lot of space in our house for something like that. But if we had a space outside, I think it would be really fun to experiment. I do know our county extension office, they'll test nickel for my soil. And that's something that I'll be doing this spring is I'll test the nickel in our soil and the levels. And then I plan to test it again next spring and just see if there's any variation. I'm planting a lot of sunflowers.
I was going to say, you should test it next to the sunflowers and away from the sunflowers. So the Nickel Navigator says that sunflower seeds are super high and sunflower oil looks like it's not. It's 0.46 micrograms. Let's look up just for giggles, dandelion. I don't think Nickel Navigator has dandelion. There's no dandelion in nickel.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking I didn't remember it being in there, but
I know I have a little hydroponic, like some kind of an arrow garden, and it grows like 6 different things. But every time I try to grow something, I wind up never eating it. But it's got like some spinach, and I think it had some basil and some different things that way. Have you found that you can tolerate more, or is your threshold still really small? Can you splurge a little more than you used to?
I'm still pretty reactive at this point. I haven't really ventured out a whole lot, though. I still feel really new at getting a hang of my environmental exposures. Even just recently, my son was sick, and the first bowl that was grabbed was a metal bowl. And then a few days later, I was like, what in the world? I'm feeling that itchy, like I have a spot. I didn't have a rash yet, but I just felt tingly and itchy. And that's my first cue that I'm going to like have an issue. And then as I was thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, he had a metal bowl. I was holding it for him. So we're still working on the environmental exposures.
So what's the non-nickel guilty pleasure in your diet now? What have you had to get rid of a lot of stuff. What's the new binge-worthy food?
I have really grown to like Lily's white chocolate, and we'll do like a lemon gluten-free cookie. My husband's birthday is coming up, and we're going to make a lemon blueberry gluten-free cake. So we have some options, and I can do dairy. So like cheesecakes, anything kind of cheesecakey.
So you want to know the stink thing with me. So it's bad enough to have a nickel allergy and not be able to do like the paleo foods and all the stuff. I think I would choose to eat that way without the nickel allergy because I think it's overall a healthier way to go. But a couple of years ago, I had 2 tick bites that made me allergic to red meat. And it's not just red meat, it's everything from a mammal. So it's collagen, gelatin. I can eat poultry. It's about the only thing I can eat. We found out that ostrich and emu are a red meat and they taste very similar to beef. But try dealing with the nickel allergy and then the alpha gal allergy on top of that. And it's like, oh, really? All I can eat is potatoes and bread and carbs and cheese. I shouldn't eat cheese. It comes from a mammal. But if I eat cheap cheese and cheap chocolate, you know, all the things that make you super, super thin and svelte. That's why I'm so it's not real fun. It's kind of a curse. But
I do love steak.
For most people with a metal allergy, meat seems to be the thing. I know a lot of people allergic to nickel on carnivore diets that swear by them and feel good and healthy. I don't know that there's enough variety there for me. I tried that. But do you have safe vegetables? What are your safe vegetables?
I like squash, spaghetti squash, zucchini, iceberg lettuce. I actually never really liked iceberg lettuce, and now I really love it. And I can do ginger, so I'll do a little bit of ginger and do like a ginger dressing with iceberg lettuce. Carrots I can do a little bit of. I think some people have problems with carrots.
I think I've just kind of learned that for most people that aren't in an active flare or active acute recovery phase, it's just really moderation. You can get away with a little more if the portion size is small and you don't do it all the time. I don't know that I feel like it's necessary unless it just causes way too much consternation to just get rid of a whole group. Like I'll have a salad once a week and it's okay as long as I do it once a week.
Yeah. I know there's some things too that are high in histamines, and that's like a whole other discussion maybe, but there are things that I avoided early on that I can do in moderation now that were high in histamine, and I do now. Citrus is a really fun one that I love that I avoided early on, but I do citrus now without any problems. So
yeah, that's awesome. We're going to wrap up in just a minute here, but I noticed you have a small business selling essential oils.
Yeah.
Talk about what that looks like with nickel, because essential oils are plant-based, and what you've noticed, or if you haven't noticed anything, what your thoughts are.
So I have not noticed any problems with it. Now, when I was like in a major reactive flare, I wasn't applying oils to those areas. I will say that I had major skin issues at one point. I think it was in 2017. We lived in an older house. I knew I was having water reactions. And at that point, we moved and they went away a little bit. And I went to a massage therapist that did a raindrop therapy. And she was like, I saw you're having sensitive skin issues. Do you think you'll have any problems with the oils? And I was like, I don't think so. And that I use them and they've never given me any issues. And so she did the massage, the raindrop technique, and I had no issues. And she was like, if you have any issues, let me know. But I didn't have any symptoms afterwards. It's wild to me to think I could be feeling like, okay, I'm allergic to water, but I can't do water, but I can do essential oils. So it was a little perplexing. But now that I know it's the nickel thing, I get it a lot more.
When you watch the Facebook group or the other groups that you're involved in, do you see discussions on essential oils from time to time? And what experiences do you see people having with them? Or do you know?
I don't think I've noticed people having a lot of discussions about it, really. Have you noticed discussions of them? I may just not see it because I feel like there are certain things that get pushed out more than others.
I don't get to spend near as much time on social media anymore as I would like. So I'm not really dialed into the latest topics. So I have to rely on those people that are at the moment. But I've thought from time to time in my own journey, there have been times where I've taken a lot of essential oils and I do react to them. I didn't used to, but after I had the metals implanted, there's now several that I can't go anywhere near. And I don't know if it's a nickel thing or not. I would suspect that there's some kind of component because these are concentrated plant materials that come from the ground. I love them. I'm such a fan of plants. I'm a huge fan of essential oils, but part of the health issues that I struggled with before we figured out I was allergic to metal and it was causing a lot of my immune system reactivity, I had Lyme disease. And so I took a lot of essential oils internally, and I was a habitual user for many years. And then all of a sudden, just one day I broke out in hives. And what they don't tell you is, yes, you can use essential oils. We don't give medical advice here, of course, but some people have said you can use essential oils in place of antibiotics. But what they don't realize is that essential oils are still very strong medicine. Herbs and essential oils can wipe out the gut just like antibiotics can. And I don't think that that's maybe necessarily, regulation's the wrong word, but I don't think that's talked about enough. So I think some caution,
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you haven't noticed anything and you're still able to use it. I hope that maybe I could get back to a place where I could use more. I'm getting healthier by the day.
Yeah.
So.
And my understanding with a lot of essential oils is they do want to draw toxins out of the body. And so that would be my thing to think through with you having metal in your body. If your body's trying to get these things out because you've been using essential oils and they're trying to pull toxins out of your body, I could see why it would be, I think, a suspect reason for having, I don't know though. It's so hard to know.
Yeah. How do we know? And like you said earlier when we were chatting before the podcast recording, is that, what works for some doesn't work for everybody. Well, I think we've covered it all, girl. And I am super grateful that you came on to share with us your journey. And I know that the listeners will be super grateful and touched by a lot of what you've had to say. Any final parting words? I
would say to just keep on working on it and keep looking for a healthcare provider that's going to support you and encourage you and find new ways to explore your health. I think that's something that, as I've learned about low nickel, I've learned and explored whole parts of my health that I've just really been able to support my body, I think, better in doing what the lymphatic system needs to do, what the nervous system needs to do, what the digest. I feel like I am definitely experiencing this healing in many ways, not just in my nickel allergy. So yeah, I would say just keep on and keep going.
We'll do it. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it for today. So thank you for tuning in. And as always, thank you for helping us stand up to change the medical narrative and tell the medical establishment that we aren't going to take it anymore. Peace out, guys. Thank you for tuning in today. Please don't forget to follow me on social media and to like, share, and subscribe. My primary mission is reaching out to others who may be suffering from hypersensitivity reactions to metal implants and pointing them to resources that can assist with hope, help, and healing. If you know someone that suffers from a chronic illness, you might ask if they have any implanted metal hardware and if they've ever had a reaction to jewelry or metals of any kind. Might not even be on their radar. Visit us at heavilymetal.com where you can find images and documentation relating to our show today, as well as a number of valuable resources and links to assist you on your own personal healing journey. Until next time, keep on rocking.